Hello, our truth warriors. Well, today's guest has been a global voice against tyrannical overreach and an inspiration for many to just say no. In a united non-compliance against a corrupt and dangerous system, he has become an advocate for people to reclaim their inalienable rights. He is a good friend of mine and has always been supportive of the work done here at the Atlantic Underground podcast. Welcome back, the one and only Chris Sky.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
No, it's great. It's great to see you. Now, the past 2 years have been like a bad dream for many. It's so bizarre in its nature. I mean, with the content and everything we've all had to deal with, absorbing now, we need so many more people to wake up to the reality. Do you think we are achieving any kind of critical mass now to the point where we can make these much needed changes?
I think we finally have reached that point. I think we reached a point, a good milestone with the trucker convoy, where we got the whole country and the world united behind the idea that bodily autonomy still matters, that we should have the ability to just say no to things like medical interventions in our life, especially ones with serious adverse reactions, including potentially death and other things that we've seen throughout the community. So that united the entire country. That woke up everybody. It brought all industries together. And since then, we started to see that we started to get some of our freedom back. But at the same time, we realized that the powers that be haven't given up. They've just changed tactics once again. Yeah. So it's like, yes, we won a battle, we gained some ground, but at the same time, we didn't stop them, and they're still making advances in so many other areas. So it was a bittersweet victory, and it's going to be a bittersweet summer, because as we're trying to enjoy our newfound freedoms, we're going to be bombarded with increasingly negative and scary propaganda to try to convince us that we were selfish for giving up, for wanting our rights back, for taking off our masks, for questioning the science on these vaccines. So you're going to see a slide very steadily with a lot of predictive programming heading us back towards the fall for another round of lockdowns, and to bombard us with a whole new round of different things to be afraid of, because they know that people aren't really scared of COVID anymore. People weren't really scared of COVID for a long time. What they were scared of was losing their job if they didn't take a vaccine, et cetera, et cetera. So now the only way, and I've been telling people this since day one, the only way they can continue this charade is by convincing enough people to go out and get that third shot. If they can do that, as you will see on the news, everywhere they've been telling you, our Minister of Health said, and I said this as a joke, we were saying, the pure bloods were saying this as a joke to all the people who took the first and second shots especially. We told you, you're never going to be fully vaccinated. They're always going to tell you they want a booster. And sure enough, now that they believe that they got, I think it's 50+% of the eligible population boosted, if you believe their lying numbers. Yeah. Now they're trying to get what into your head? There's no more such thing as fully vaccinated. Now it's up to date. And everybody needs to be up to date to within 9 months of their last shot, which is very funny, because way back in March at the TED Talks, when we ran Bill Gates right out of Vancouver, I warned everybody that that's exactly what they were going to do. They were going to change tactics and tell you, now you're going to need a COVID shot once a year, which that's what 9 months is. It's virtually once a year, even worse than once a year. And they're going to tell you they have a new COVID shot coming out, because now they're going to blame the new round of masks and all the vaccine failures on the COVID Omicron variant sub B5, whatever the hell it's called. They're going to come up with any excuse for why all the vaccinated, especially the triple vaccinated, are the ones getting sick, the ones getting hospitalized, and the ones that are dying from this. But they're going to use that as an excuse to start bringing back the masks, because they're going to say, oh my God, this new variant is so virulent that our vaccines aren't even working. So now we need masks. Then once they get everyone with the mask, then they're going to release the new vaccine and say, oh, you guys want to take off the mask? Take the vaccine. Then if they can get enough people to take the vaccine, surprise, surprise, they're going to bring back all the mandates, the vaccine passports, the travel restriction, everything else, to prove once again that the more you comply, the more you're going to get restrictions, the more you're going to get mandates, the more you're going to get more of this nightmare. And for the 100 millionth time that I'm telling you this, the only way this stops, the only way this ends is when we all just say no. And when we all do that together, it's called united non-compliance. And it's the only viable solution to this problem. It always has been, it always will be. And until Canadians stand up and say enough is enough, we're going to be going through another round of this every single year, where Canadians feel like they're free when the sun comes out, and then they put their stupid mask back on and take another jab in the fall. And the only thing that's going to change every year is more and more people are going to get sick, and more people are going to die. And just to make sure of that, now they got monkeypox. Let's be real. What is monkeypox really? Monkeypox really is a manifestation of people with very damaged immune systems. That's why it's spreading throughout the men who have sex with men community. Because of their lifestyle, they typically have the lowest functioning immune systems of all the different categories of people, which is why they are prevalent with HIV and other things. This is not stigma. This is not bias. This is called reality. Lesbian females who do not have anal sexual penetration with a male organ typically have the lowest rates of sexually transmitted diseases that require penetration. So that's just the way it is. So that's why we're seeing monkeypox spread through the men who have sex with men community. They are also the far left. So they are one of the most likely to be jabbed. So you have these gentlemen who have multiple sexual partners, multiple male organs penetrating, and they're more than likely double and triple jabbed. So that's why the disease is spreading amongst them. So what's their solution? Let's give them a smallpox vaccine. Smallpox, one of the most deadly diseases of all time, literally extinction level event causing, can wipe out 30-40% of the entire population, not just a few million people, we're talking billions of people, has been eradicated off the planet for decades. So let's start find the people with the most damaged immune systems we can, that are already manifesting a disease similar to smallpox. And now let's inject these already immunocompromised, already sick people with a smallpox vaccine that up until the COVID vaccine came out had the worst safety record of any vaccine in human history. What is that? This is literally how to create a pandemic 101. And they're doing it all by design. We were already warned in March 2021 from one of their studies and their papers that there was going to be a monkeypox pandemic. It was going to start on May 15th, 2022. So they gave you the exact virus and they gave you the exact date.
Yeah.
What's next? Are they going to give me tomorrow's lottery numbers? Because I think I want to be a billionaire.
No, that's definitely it. I mean, as well, you know, it has been said that people who've taken the vaccines as well, the actual vaccine has been diminishing their ability to have this natural immunity, and they become immunocompromised after taking several of these shots anyway, because of the nature of how it's getting in and changing the body. So all the people that have taken the vaccine, sadly, are possibly wide open to anything like this. Certainly any other illness, this can be likened to what's happening with a lot of deaths anyway. But, if they're going to take something like a smallpox vaccine now, as you said, as they ramp up the fear campaign on the monkeypox, well, would it be normal to think that vaccine for smallpox is the same as other vaccines, nothing, with RNA changing, which means that vaccine actually does contain a small amount of the smallpox virus within it, which your body is supposed to learn to fight. It's like people taking the flu vaccine. And how many people do you know who have been so ill after taking the flu vaccines? Can you imagine what's going to happen with the smallpox? I mean, it's got the potential to seriously harm humanity.
I gotta add something very important there, because this is what's going to make the shift to make smallpox, the monkeypox, one of the global health threats that they're going to talk about. So we all know they met and they said it didn't constitute a global health threat as of yet. But because of what you said, because each inoculation contains a small amount of live virus, not only does that mean it can get the person that they gave it to sickness because they are immunocompromised, it also means that person will now shed that live virus to other people. So now other people who were never vaccinated can get the monkeypox or get a variation of smallpox from this vaccine. And what are you seeing from that? We are now seeing the first instances of children who are close to these males who had the original strain of monkeypox now showing symptoms and catching monkeypox. As soon as the WHO has enough children infected with monkeypox, it now meets the criteria to become a global public health threat on par with COVID and on par with polio. This will be now the first time ever in human history where we have 3 congruent public health threats. And like you also said, what we're seeing here is people are diminishing their immunity with each consecutive shot. The Nobel Prize winning scientist, Luc Montagnier, who discovered HIV, which is the lack of your immune system's ability to be able to fight off infection in a chronic way, stated quite plainly that every shot you get is going to lower your white blood cell count. And after 3 shots, you should get tested for HIV because your white blood cell count will be so low, your immune system will be immunocompromised. Yeah. Now, at that point, not only are you not going to be able to fight off COVID or monkeypox or any other disease, any pre-existing condition that your body was already predisposed to, like diabetes or cancer or heart disease, now your body's immune system is so compromised and trying to deal with the vaccines that has been given that it can no longer keep these things at bay. So now we have people that are getting injected with the COVID vaccine, and it's going to manifest into conditions that they would have got much later in life. So we're going to see huge instances in cancer. We're going to see huge instances in diabetes, hepatitis, and a whole host of other diseases. And then on top of that, because once again, everybody's immune system is compromised who took this jab, which is billions of people, they're going to be susceptible to virtually every other disease on the planet. And that is why our leaders in this movement, like Bill Gates, are telling everybody with certainty that this is called the decade of pandemics. And they know that with certainty because they're creating it by killing off everybody's immune systems and making them susceptible to virtually every other virus. And then the final nail in the coffin, and I got to get this out there, is they're going to try to introduce even another vaccine, Lyme disease. Nobody's heard about this yet, and this is very important. Lyme disease had a vaccine once upon a time. They used it in the United States on a few people and then discontinued it, never approved it anywhere else, including Canada. Now, 2018, Dr. Kieran Moore gets a $4 million 5-year grant from Pfizer through Ontario Public Health to head up the Canadian Lyme Disease Research Association or Foundation, whatever the heck it's called. His primary purpose is now being put as the head of like the Lyme disease research in Canada. Fast forward to 2020, while he's currently under contract with Pfizer, getting paid $800,000 a year, Pfizer acquires the only available Lyme disease vaccine on the market for about $120 million. Fast forward to 2021, Eileen Davila, head of Ontario Public Health, forced to resign because of all the lawsuits and everything else. Guess who is appointed to replace her? Dr. Kieran Moore, currently on Pfizer's payroll at $800,000 a year. So now guess what happened in 2022? They got their new Lyme disease vaccine to stage 3 clinical trials. So it's now ready to be approved and be ready to get marketed. Guess who's in charge of the approval for Pfizer's vaccine? Dr. Kieran Moore, the same man who is now Ontario head of public health and the man responsible for pushing the vaccine mandates in Ontario above all else, while being paid $800,000 a year by Pfizer currently as we speak. So this is the kind of conflict of interest we're seeing. And if they can introduce that vaccine, think about it. If they can get people to take a COVID vaccine every 9 months and they can convince them to take a flu shot, then all of a sudden they convince them to take a monkeypox. You know how many people have already taken the monkeypox shot in Canada? Yeah, about 20,000. And that's going to go up exponentially. So you're going to have people that are 3-4 COVID shots deep, a monkeypox shot. They're going to take their flu shot. Then they're going to ask them to take either a polio shot or this Lyme disease shot. So when you got people that are taking 4 or 5 different vaccines, it's going to be almost impossible to show which adverse reactions are being caused by which vaccines and vice versa. So at that point, no side effects are going to be given out as vaccine injury, because it's going to be impossible to blame any one of these vaccines. And that's what they want to get to. They want to get to the point where vaccine becomes so routine that people are going to take 4, 5, 6 different ones a year. And then when people are dying and people are getting sick, it's going to be impossible to blame the drug companies, impossible to hold people accountable. That's where this is going.
That's it. And I know the ironic thing is Lyme disease, which for people watching maybe in different parts of the world, it's a tick-borne disease that gets into you after being bitten by a tick. But these ticks are the ones that were biting initially supposed to be deer. And the deer that they traced this Lyme disease back to was a deer that actually escaped from the US research facility of Plum Island, where they were messing around with different diseases and illnesses to weaponize it. So again, what they're looking now to vaccinate, this cocktail of poison that they want to put into everyone is arising from something that was originally an experiment for the military. And you just couldn't make this stuff up. It's just unbelievable.
It's 100% true. Just like everyone thinks that the COVID vaccine is this brand new technology. In reality, the mRNA technology was created almost 50 years ago, decades ago, to try to create an HIV vaccine. And they tried and failed for decades. And that's why now, even in the COVID vaccine, there is actually fragments of the HIV virus. And if you recall, in Australia, one of the first candidates for a COVID vaccine was actually giving people false positives for HIV, taking it, so they had to take it off the market. So the amount of corruption, the amount of connections between smallpox, HIV, COVID, and everything going on is too coincidental to ignore. And what the common denominator you're going to see is more and more people getting sick, more and more people die, more and more people having adverse reactions. And it's even hitting the celebrities. Look at it. You saw Justin Bieber and Hailey Baldwin are probably 2 of the most famous celebrities in the world. Yeah. She has a blood clot. He got the Ramsay Hunt syndrome or facial paralysis. Britney Spears just had a miscarriage after she's had multiple healthy pregnancies. These are all the telltale top adverse reactions being reported for these jabs, and it's happening to celebs. Bruce Willis got the neurological disorder. Ray Liotta died in his sleep. You can just they got sudden adult death syndrome now. Like we've always had it, yes. Only whenever somebody would die from sudden adult death syndrome, upon looking at an autopsy, you would find a pre-existing condition that they were probably born with, or some type of poisoning that caused that to happen. In this case, they're just saying, oh, it's just normal for young and healthy people to drop dead. No, if you're dropping dead, it means you ain't healthy. It doesn't matter what they're trying to tell us. So this idea that sudden adult death syndrome is to blame for all these deaths, including the deaths of children, even that congressman in the United States, or is he a senator? I can't remember. He had 2 daughters. They both got jabbed. He was bragging about how his whole family's jabbed. And then his younger daughter, 14 years old, died in her sleep. Yeah. What are they going to call that? They can't even call it sudden adult death syndrome, sudden child death syndrome.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. And you know, all this is, they're actually putting out on the media, you know, the excuses already. The amount of news articles I have seen recently that are saying people are at higher risk of heart attacks, and the excuses are living near an airport, working in the garden, in the soil, sleeping in front of the TV. They're just making up the most ridiculous things, you know,
I got the best one.
Yeah.
Diagnosing cause of death as climate change.
Climate change. Yeah, I've seen that one as well. Just unbelievable, just unbelievable. And the thing is, this is sowing the seed into people's minds out there that this is perfectly normal and acceptable, because I seen it on the news. They said about heart attacks. They've said about these sudden adult deaths. You know, it is absolutely ridiculous, but the majority of the people...
You made a fantastic point that I want to hit home for everybody. They are literally using the media to try to normalize and not even normalize, even redefine things. The vaccine, remember when they found it out, was 95% effective at preventing infection and 99% effective at preventing severe hospitalization and death. Yeah. Now, what do we see? Trudeau himself just got COVID again after boasting that he got his third shot. So they're trying to normalize the idea of never-ending boosters and normalize the idea of no matter how many boosters you get, you're still going to get COVID. Yeah. But for some reason, you should still get the booster just because they said so. That's what they're trying to do here. And they're literally trying to reinvent terms. They said there's no longer a possibility for herd immunity. We're not going for herd immunity. The only way you can get herd immunity is by not vaccinating the population, letting everybody get natural immunity. That's herd immunity. When you're vaccinating people with an experimental injection, which you acknowledge only works up until the next variant, if you're lucky, then you're never going to get herd immunity. And you're setting yourself up for a perpetual cycle of constantly injecting people with poison that doesn't work, but literally kills them.
Yeah. No, it is. It's insane. Now, I've lost your video feed. I can still see an image of you and the sound is still good. So we're going to carry on. If we can discuss with the freedom movements that we were talking about before, the possible infiltrations into these movements of certain individuals and what is happening and why people need to be careful about who they put their trust in currently.
Okay, perfect. Well, I can explain this very easily. We've been far too successful in our freedom movement. Why? Because it's been based on love, it's been based on unity, and it's based on the idea that we need to fight for each other for the betterment of everybody. So what's been happening over the last 2 years is everybody started off terrified. And as the 2 years progressed, they got less terrified and less terrified and less scared. And they started getting more angry because that's the natural reaction. When someone tells you to wear a mask for forever, at first you're wearing it because you're scared. Eventually you want to take it off and they tell you still got to wear it. So eventually you're going to get mad. And then when you get to that anger point, you're not going to comply out of spite. And that's where we got to. We got to the point where everybody was ready to just say no out of spite. And that's no good because if they're going to tell you to wear the mask, you're not going to do it. They're going to tell you to take a jab, you're not going to do it. They're going to tell you to close your business, you're not going to do it. So now, rather than trying to scare you into submission and put you in that state of mind where you're confused and ready to be told what to do, they're going to try to manipulate you. They're going to try to harness that anger and make you do something that in their best interest. So what if you were the government and you wanted to destroy the freedom movement, what would you do? You would try to turn it from a movement of love, light, and unity into one of anger, hate, and aggression. That way it can be demonized. That way everybody involved can be labeled a terrorist. They can be locked up without any type of normal recourse, have their bank accounts frozen, etc. You'd be able to pass laws to prevent protesting, prevent online organization, and all the government draconian measures would appear to be justified as a means of protecting the government from this violent extremist group. So it would literally turn the narrative on its head and give the government the exact pretense they need to crush the freedom movement, arrest all the people that are highly involved in the freedom movement. So what did they do? A man by the name of Marcus Ray appeared out of nowhere after the trucker convoy. He had a cowboy hat. He spoke with an accent, and he told everybody he had a wonderful plan. He had money. He had backing. He had the support of the police, the military, and thousands of freedom fighters. And above all, it was a nonviolent way to get the government to negotiate and see our side of the story, and everyone should work with him. It sounded great. So I actually met with him himself. He said his plan was going to kick off in 8 weeks. I even actually joined a convoy with him from Alberta to BC, where we spoke at a couple of events together. And I gave him the benefit of the doubt and heard what he said. And everything he said sounded great. He didn't talk about violence. He didn't talk about weapons. He didn't talk about anything except getting people together, having the funding, having the backing, and having the means to get the government to listen to us. It sounded like a dream come true. So then 10 weeks went by, and I hadn't heard anything about his plan actually kickstarting. So whenever someone gives a deadline and the deadline passes, I'm already suspect. So at this point, I also started hearing rumors about his past, about how he used to be a male exotic dancer, which doesn't really mean anything. But then I heard that he was in a lawsuit for a couple $100,000. He was in debt. And I started hearing things like he was ex-RCMP and he was still working for the government and all these different types of speculations. I said, well, that stuff's all speculation, except for the court documents that showed about the actual lawsuit. That was the only thing that could be proven, and the fact that he was a male exotic dancer. But none of that really meant anything to me, except people started talking about how his group was talking about violence and talking about things that can be construed as like terroristic. I thought this must be crazy. So I got myself invited to one of Marcus Ray's groups, closed door meetings at a private location where you have to give all your electronic devices away. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is very cloak and dagger. I want to see what these guys have to say. Like, I've been to protest meetings before, but I've never been to anything like this. What is this, a CSIS operation? So we sat down and I asked them, please let me know your plan. So I was told that Marcus Ray had teamed up with Christopher James. Christopher James is a great guy. I have no problem with him. He calls himself the common law expert. I believe he has his heart in the right place. Unfortunately, with common law, it's very hard to enforce it unless you can get thousands and thousands and thousands of people behind you. So Marcus came to Christopher James, and Christopher James has been trying to put this plan into play for a couple of years now, and basically told him, hey, I'm your white knight. I got thousands and thousands of people for you. So Christopher James said, sure, let's work together. Seems plausible, seems like a great fit. So what was their plan? Well, Christopher James needs to serve a courthouse. He can do that on his own. But if you serve a courthouse on your own with common law, they're not going to take you seriously. It's not going to be enforced. It's basically just going to get swept under the rug and nothing's going to happen. In order for common law, even in theory, to work, you need thousands and thousands of people to come there to the courthouse and serve the document with you, which would be fine if it was done like we had in like the trucker convoy, with a whole group of civilians, bouncy castles, barbecues, everyone singing and dancing, etc. They told me that their plan was to create an entirely new line of law enforcement. I go, excuse me? They go, yeah. You know, in the United States, how they have a constitutional sheriff's convention and they can create and elect sheriffs? I said, yes. They go, well, we're going to do the exact same thing here in Canada. I said, well, how are you going to do that? We don't have a constitution, let alone a constitutional sheriff or a constitutional sheriff's convention as an option.
Yeah.
And then they admitted, yeah, well, we can't really do that. But what we can do is get a whole bunch of volunteers and deputize them. I go, wait, so you're going to get guys and tell them that you're going to make them police officers and then imbue them with a fake authority that doesn't come from anywhere? They're like, oh, well, we're going to get them uniforms. I go, what? So now you're planning on getting guys, telling them that they're cops, giving them fake police uniforms, and you don't think that that's already a bad idea? They go, no, why? I go, okay, tell me the rest of your plan. So they go, okay, well, once we have our 5,000 cops, they call themselves cops now, in uniform, they're going to get 5,000 riot shields.
Okay.
In fact, 5,000 riot shields, okay? And I said, what do you need 5,000 riot shields for? Well, we're going to go take a courthouse. That was the exact word they used, take. I said, you're going to take a courthouse. What do you mean by that? They go, you know, we're going to surround the courthouse. We're not going to let anybody in or out of the courthouse. And then we're going to send Christopher James into the courthouse with a few people to serve the government documents and demand they hold court. I go, so you're going to bring an army of guys in uniform, armed with riot shields, surround a government building that has judges, lawyers, and civilians inside, tell them they're not allowed to come and go, and then send in a guy with documentation telling the government you're not leaving until they hold court for you. That's what you're telling me. And they're like, yeah, pretty much, all peacefully, of course. I go, do you know what you just described to me as the literal definition of terrorism, right? And they said, no. I said, well, yeah, because you're going there as an occupying force. You're literally not letting people in and out, and then you're going to demand that they hold court. That's literally word for word the definition of terrorism. I said, this is crazy. I don't want to hear any more of this. So I got up and I left. As I left, I told them they were Corona batshit crazy. So then I was like, this can't be Marcus's plan. This has to be just some yahoos talking shit. This can't be. So I actually waited a day and a half to cool down because I was like fuming. And I called Marcus Ray and I recorded the call. I have a 33-minute call. And I posted a small snippet of the call because I posted the most important part. But he unequivocally reiterated virtually everything they said. They're going to get 5,000 guys. They got 5,000 uniforms, the riot shields. In fact, he even said they had already bought the riot shields. So when he said that, I said, where the hell did you get the money for riot shields? 5,000 of anything costs a lot of money. A riot shield's hundreds of dollars. Where'd you get 500 grand? And he admitted that he has a shady group of people that are financing him and controlling him. Yet he's masquerading as a leader of a movement. So I said, who are these people? Oh, I can't tell you that. So you're getting money from people that you can't tell who they are. These people are trying to get you to create an illegal army, and then they want you to commit a terrorist act. So anybody associated with you can go to jail. That's pretty fucking crazy. So that's why I posted that video. I showed everybody, because this has every hallmark. Like Marcus Ray, if he's not working for the government directly, he's working for the government indirectly as a patsy. So he's either a government agent, he's getting paid by the government, or he's just a patsy. But the fact that he's being told what to do by a group of people with a lot of money seems to lend credence to the idea that he's being paid. So anybody that doesn't understand that idea, number one, has about a 0% chance of working. Number two, has about a 100% chance of invoking a violent and justified violent response from the government, which the media will also be able to fucking make look insane. They got an emergency order justified with bouncy castles, singing, dancing, kumbaya, everybody loving each other. Imagine CTV filming guys in riot shields and uniforms surrounding a courthouse. They would be justified to bring in the army. The whole international community would support Trudeau. He would look like a hero. It is literally the only thing that could possibly save our corrupt, floundering government at this point in time. It would be like the gift from God to them. That's why I had to expose it. So if anybody else tried to do what Marcus was doing, or anybody was trying to think of joining Marcus, or anyone was trying to think of doing anything violent or aggressive or terroristic, that they should not friggin' do it, period.
And I understand that people's tempers can easily get frayed. It's been 2 years of hard, taking it off the government. I understand that, but we only have to look back at history, things like Waco and different parts of the world where people have tried to seize places. It never ended well. I don't know any time that it did end well.
And you'll never look like the good guy. How can you look like the good guy going there in uniforms with shields surrounding a building? You look like the bad guys. If you had 5,000 guys in uniform that went to Ottawa when there was 1 million civilians in Ottawa, all just living peacefully, and then the government lined up their stormtroopers to go beat men, women, and children with batons, and then 5,000 men lined up in front of them in uniforms and said, no, we're not going to let you hurt these people, then they could look like heroes. Then they would have a place there. But you're not just going to have a protest where you said nothing but an army. That's ridiculous. That's not a protest anymore. That's an insurrection. They were trying to create a January 6th North. They were trying to do what they did in the United States, in Canada, so they could completely control the narrative, completely crush their political and their otherwise opponents, and destroy the entire freedom movement, everything we've built over the last 2 years, and give themselves a huge push. But it got exposed. I don't think anybody in Canada is stupid enough to fall for that garbage. And we're a lot smarter than that. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, let's hope so. Now, tell us about what's happened after the security staff assaulted you at the West Edmonton Mall.
Oh, yeah, this is brand new. Okay. So my wife and I went to West Edmonton Mall. It was like November. We went in there just because she needed a pair of socks. So we literally were just trying to run in and run out. As soon as we ran in the mall, one of the security guards recognized who I was. So he ran up the escalator to bother us, and he asked us for our mask medical exemption, because this is when they had the mask mandates. My wife and I, on video, as you can see, as I posted the video, I have a 9 minute 24-second video. Yeah. We actually showed the mask exemption to multiple security guards, which they checked and they verified. But this guy said he was banning me regardless because he didn't like my attitude. So on video, I asked him to specifically show me what I breached, what policy I broke, what rule I broke, etc. Because I hadn't done anything. He couldn't, he wouldn't. He just kept insisting that we leave. insisting that they were going to attack me physically. So I kept warning them on camera that if you touch me, I'm just going to call 911. I'm like, you have no right to touch me. You're a security guard. You're not a police officer. And I haven't committed a crime and I'm not being violent. So you can let me buy my socks and leave. And we argued like that as I was walking around the mall with my wife for about 9 minutes, going to a bunch of different stores trying to find socks. Finally, and at the end of the video, they attacked my wife first because she was the one filming, because they wanted to try to take the camera away, and simultaneously attacked me and tried to put me in a chokehold, which my wife caught on camera right before she fell. And then at that point, the camera stopped filming. There was a minor struggle with the guards, but I didn't like try to hit anybody or anything. I just wasn't letting them take me in until they begged my wife for me to stop struggling and said they would just allow us to leave. So I agreed with them. But then as soon as I stopped struggling, they put me down face first. They handcuffed me behind my back and my wife, and they kidnapped us and detained us illegally in a holding cell underneath the mall without any police present. In fact, they kept my wife handcuffed behind her back even after they had her in the holding cell, because they claimed that her wedding ring could be used as a weapon. So they kept a 95-pound woman handcuffed behind her back while she was already alone in a jail cell. And for me, they gave me a phone with a phone book with most of the pages ripped out to try and call a lawyer. Instead, I used the phone and called 911. The police came. They were forced to let us go. And then I started smearing them all over the internet. I started a campaign for people to call the mall, try to get the security guard identified and fired, because he's the one that started the whole altercation. They got really bad press from it. But the people who own the mall are a multi-billion-dollar family with ties right up to the chief of police in Edmonton, and ties really high to the Trudeau government, and billions of dollars. So they used their clout within the police force to start slandering me. And they knew I was coming back to do a toy drive, because the year before I did the Santa Claus parade in Toronto. So this year I was doing a toy drive, and I was going to bring hundreds and hundreds of people mass free shopping at West Edmonton Mall. So to try to stop that from happening, they used their clout within the Edmonton police to actually have a police officer reach out to me via text to give me a list of all these frivolous charges, including something like publishing a defamatory statement for claiming that they tried to chokehold me, when I have video and photographic evidence of them doing exactly that. So it was a whole bunch of frivolous charges that were meant to intimidate me from going to the mall. Instead, I went back to the mall dressed as Santa, brought hundreds and hundreds of people. It went viral all over the world. I had people messaging me all the way from South Korea talking about it. And they escorted me out of the mall while I was trying to buy a bear and build a bear for the toy drive. And then they brought me to jail. While in jail, I had a judge sign a release order because I hadn't broken any laws. They had really no reason to arrest me, even with their trumped up charges. I got bail. Paid the bail order was signed. They're supposed to let me out of jail. Instead, somebody made a phone call. So when they came to bring me out of my cell to release me, rather than release me, they took my bail thing that had already been paid, crumpled it up, threw it in my face, picked me up, threw me face down on the floor, said, "Change of plans, you're going to prison." They threw me in the back of a black van, brought me to the Edmonton Remand Center, and threw me in a holding cell with my crumpled up, paid for bail paper that was signed by a judge for me to be released. When I got to the corrections facility, I gave them the bail paperwork and said, "Look, I'm not supposed to be here." They looked at it. They said, "Yeah, you're right." They put me in a holding cell. They called somebody to come pick me up because it had already been paid and everything. The person, my friend Sean, got there. He was coming to the cell to get me out. Somebody made a phone call. They came back and said, "Sorry, you're not getting out." And they kept me in prison for 3 days in solitary confinement because I wouldn't take a COVID test and I wasn't jabbed. So they used that as their excuse to keep me in my cell almost 24 hours a day for almost 3 days. And they had also grabbed my wife and threw her in prison for 3 days without even charging her with a crime. So they did this to try to intimidate us. They did this to try to punish us for going up against their clout and for trying to embarrass them, etc. We ended up getting the same judge on at our bail hearing, who actually freaked out in the court and said, "Why is this man here?" when he was ordered released. They had no answer for him. So basically they told him to just release us immediately. Immediately was 10 hours later. And then even after that, I had a court date. So my lawyers went to represent me in court. And the state came back and said they didn't have disclosure ready. So, and that's how it works in Alberta. In Alberta, they'll give you a court date without disclosure. In places like Ontario, they won't give you a court date until there's disclosure. Here, they'll give you the court date. You go. If there's no disclosure, they postpone it. So that's exactly what they did. But guess what? They lost. This is what their explanation was. The very next day after court, I had a warrant for my arrest, unbeknownst to me. Nobody told me. Thankfully, I had a person in the RCMP who was friendly to me contact me from private number on my cell phone to warn me that I had a warrant for my arrest that I probably didn't know about. And I had, what the hell is this guy talking about? I thought it was a crank call, but I had my lawyer call, and guess what they told my lawyer? Yeah, your client has a warrant for his arrest because he didn't show up to court yesterday. My lawyer's like, what are you talking about? I was there. Here's the paperwork. And he showed them all the paperwork. And they're like, oh, our bad. We must have misfiled the paperwork and put the warrant out for his arrest by accident. Sure. And I would have not have known. And as soon as the cops saw me, I would have got arrested. The only reason I didn't get arrested is because somebody called me from the RCMP to warn me. I have no idea who it was, but whoever it was, thank you very much. Yeah. So that's the kind of shady, corrupt shit I've been dealing with that. So then finally, just yesterday, it went to court after we got disclosure. And guess what? They decided to drop all charges. This is one of the most wealthy families in the entire world with the best lawyers that money can buy. So if they thought they had even a half of a chance of doing anything to me, they would have pursued this. So now that I got off those charges, it's up to me to decide whether I want to take action against them, take action against the security guards. They own the security company. They own the mall. They own virtually everything. So it would be nice to make an example of them because they are not nice people, and they have done this to a lot of people. There's lawsuits going all around about them. They owe money to people. There's corruption charges against them, bribery charges against them. There's just a never-ending thing with these people, and the fact that their corruption goes right up to the chief of police is very scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and hopefully we'll see some justice come out of that, and we can at least prove to people that they shouldn't be scared of people who have friends in high places, so to speak.
Well, that's what I wanted to show everybody. I wanted to show everybody that I don't care who you are, you're not going to just screw around and get away with it. Like, yeah, so what? I spent a couple of days in jail. Yeah, so what? They tortured me a little. Yeah, so what? I'm out now. And what happened? Absolutely nothing. You guys still look like the pieces of garbage that you are, and I'm still here, and I'm still fighting, and I'm still going forward every day.
Yeah. No, did you know if the security guard's still employed by them?
I believe he is, as a matter of fact, because when I went back there and I got arrested went back there for the toy drive, I saw a couple of the security guards from the other shift. So I believe he is still employed. I don't even know his identity. I wasn't allowed to know his name or anything. But now that I'm off the charges, I can find out. Absolutely. And I can pursue legal action against them.
Yes. Hopefully hold someone like that personally accountable for their actions.
That's what would be nice. And then it'd just be nice to see somebody like stand up to them and win, because they think they can bully everybody. They work with the government, they work with the police, and it's just one giant ball of corruption.
Yeah. Now, something a little bit different that we don't normally talk about, but people are struggling to keep hold of their homes as interest rates and the cost of living is climbing. Is this another deliberate assault on humanity to crush people?
1,000,000%. This was their agenda number one. When everything happened and the pandemic started in 2020, the very first thing I did was start a nonprofit organization called Back to Work. And it was to try to educate small businesses how to remain open and how to remain profitable, even if they were told to shut down, even with all the restrictions. So I showed them loopholes within the guidelines, loopholes within their lease agreements to keep their businesses, keep their homes. That's what this is all about. This is about crushing people financially. And I warned people as well that the biggest consequence that they're going to see out of this lockdown that they hadn't seen in the last 2 years is going to be rampant inflation. You cannot spend $600 billion of our tax dollars and not expect massive inflation, especially when you have a lower GDP, a lower economic output because of the lockdown. That's a double-edged sword with both edges stabbing you at the same time. So the amount of inflation we're going to see is drastic. And on top of that, they want us to suffer. They don't want you to be able to travel. They don't want you to be living a good life. They want you to be angry. They want you to feel negative. So they're creating all these artificial crises like the gas prices, which has nothing to do with Ukraine and Putin, the food shortages that they're doing themselves, the baby formula shortages to scare people. Everything's a distraction and everything's designed to upset people, like the abortion thing. All of that's irrelevant. But I warn people from 2020 that the number one thing they're trying to do is destroy people financially and destroy small business. They want to get rid of all your wealth. They want to get rid of your business, and they want to take your property. And then they want to take your health, so they have complete and utter control over you, period. And inflation is the best way to do that, because all the people that are already on the poverty line are now under the poverty line. And all the people that were making ends meet will barely be able to make ends meet. So you know what the next step is? They're going to raise the interest rates on the mortgage. So now more and more people are going to be underwater on their mortgage, or more and more people are going to have higher monthly payments that's going to get them pushed into that poverty line. Why? Why would you want to get as many people into the poverty line needing government assistance as possible? Because they're trying to pass the universal basic income bill. And they can't pass it now. And they know they can't pass it now because there's not enough people that will support it. But they're hoping that the average Canadian will not want to lose their house, will not want to lose their lifestyle. And they want to get them to the point where they're going to have to make a choice of either downsizing from a nice house to a condo with their family, selling their car, or supporting a universal basic income scheme where they can get an extra couple grand a month from the government. And they're hoping that the Canadians will make the selfish choice and try to maintain their lifestyle for the short term while selling the country and their children down the river in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things with this. It's, we know what the World Economic Forum are wanting. We know what they're saying about the Great Reset and what needs to happen. So in view that we can see where they want to push this agenda to, these pieces are being put into place are just the perfect vehicles to get them to where they want to be.
That's exactly right. They're just greasing the skids. They already built the track. They got us on it. They're pushing us in that direction with all their might, regardless of how much we try to resist. And now they're doing everything they can to grease the skids under our feet so they can make it easier on themselves. And that's why the only way to stop them is to simply not give in, simply do not comply. That stops everything in its tracks 100% of the time, without any type of violence and without exposing yourself. That Marcus Ray plan puts you at risk. I literally have him on tape telling me that the people need to be ready to be charged with terrorism. The people need to be ready to die. No, all you got to do is just say no and be ready to go up against the government and maybe go to court and maybe have to dispute a fine. You don't have to worry about getting shot or imprisoned or charged as a terrorist or have your bank accounts frozen just by telling someone you're not going to wear a mask and you're not going to take a jab. It's that simple. They want to make it seem like it's scary and only a certain type of person can do it. No, every man, woman, and child aged 3 to 103 can say no to something they know is wrong. And not only can they should. It's a moral obligation at this point.
Yeah, and if they don't realize that they have to do that now, the repercussions for future generations is just going to be unbelievable. And that's why people need to not allow them to keep pushing them in a certain direction. Absolutely. It's absolutely crazy. Now, has your work in pushing for truth and justice for people become damaging for your company, your clients, or have you received great feedback and support?
I get primarily great feedback and support. Obviously, in certain individual circumstances, there's a negative aspect. Like if I meet someone that is terrified, wears 3 masks on their face and looking for their 4th jab, they probably don't really appreciate my work because they're lost poor souls. Yes. But for the average person even the average person that's complying with everything, they're complying out of fear. They don't want to do it. They're being coerced for one way or another. So even those people, even the double jab, wearing a mask, that are doing it because they're scared, appreciate what I'm doing, appreciate that I'm standing up for them, even if they don't have the ability to stand up for themselves. So I'm seeing an overwhelming support. And now what I'm also seeing is overwhelming number of people agreeing with the message of just say no. Like if you went on the average internet community like 6buzz with all the younger kids last year or the year before, they were all promoting the vaccine, they're all promoting the mask. Now they just did a post today on Six Buzz. Oh, what do you think of the idea of having to get a shot every 9 months? Like I warned them about. Well, now 99% of the people are no longer down with the agenda, and they're not afraid to speak out. And now that they're not afraid to speak out, that means they're not afraid to act either. Because if you're too afraid to say no online, you're definitely not going to say no in person. But if you're saying it online and you're saying, no way am I going to take that shot, and everybody's agreeing with you and your comment got 700 likes, you're not going to go get that shot because you know that you're making the right choice. You're getting validation, you're getting affirmation, and you know there's enough people doing it that you're not going to get the consequences. And that's the KV. The only way this can work for the government is if people comply. And they keep trying to tell people the opposite, that the only way you're ever going to get through this, the only way COVID's ever going to stop, the only way your life's ever going to go back to normal is if you do everything we say. And it's the exact opposite. That's what people need to realize. Everything the government tells you is a lie. You do the exact opposite virtually every time, you're going to be better off.
Yeah. And the beauty is as well, Chris, what I'm seeing and hearing from people, you know, I thought if people were going to be taking the vaccines, that's it. They jumped in with 2 feet and we're going to support. But the beauty is, and what we're seeing, I'm hearing from people who have taken 1 shot, 2 shots, 2 shots and a booster. And they're even drawing the line in the sand now. They're saying enough is enough. I went along with it. I thought I was doing the right thing. But now you've pushed it too far. And there's so many people who have taken the vaccines, realized that they're not good for them, realized that it has caused some health issues for them. Even those who haven't, they're drawing that line in the sand right now and saying no, which is a great amount of people to support what our cause was right from the beginning.
Well, I created a theory way in late 2021, and I called it peak vaccination. And I said that peak vaccination would be shot number 2, because that would be, they would never get more people to take shot number 2 than they took to get shot number 3. Reason being, the people like us that won't take a shot simply won't take a shot. There are people that stopped at shot 1 are not going to go to, not going to magically go for shot 2 and 3 later. They stopped at shot 1. Shot 2 was the peak. You're never going to get more people to take shot 3 than you got to take shot 2, and you're never going to get more people to take shot 4 than you got to take shot 3. So they're going to see a phenomenon with a drop off of a certain percentage of people with every consecutive shot. And the funny thing is, the only percentage that they can get mandates in is around 70%. And they're never going to see 70% again, except that they got it with the first shot. They think they have a chance of getting it with the 3rd shot, but they might in certain provinces, but they're never going to be able to continue that with 4, 5, 6. So this nightmare is going to end between shot 3 and 4 in Canada, one way or the other.
Excellent. No, and that's what we want to hear. Now, we discussed previously if you would ever make a move into politics, and I'm wondering if you've changed your mind yet on anything like that.
To be honest, I don't trust any politician. And if I was in politics, they would do everything they could to try to either silence me, kill me, or corrupt me. And it'd just be a long, tedious battle that I don't think would be worth it, like at this point. Because to me, it doesn't matter who's elected as an official. If they're a piece of garbage like Trudeau, you just don't do what they say, and their power is nullified.
Yes.
And if you're lucky and you happen to get a good leader, then surprise, your life is going to be easy because now you can do what they say. The problem is, it doesn't matter. We have 2 political parties in this country that are mathematically capable of winning: the Liberals or the Conservatives. Both of them are controlled by the same entities. Both of them want the same thing. The Conservatives want the Great Reset too. They're just better at hiding it from their constituents. The Liberals and Conservatives who have been in lockstep virtually this entire pandemic. Only when the trucker convoy came and they saw a conservative uprising amongst the working class did they have to start playing the good cop, bad cop game once again. Because up until that point, I'm sorry, but I lived in Ontario, and Doug Ford's Open for Business conservative Ontario was just as liberal and just as mandated as every other province and every other city, if not worse. So is there really a difference between liberal and conservative? No. And is there a chance for any other party to ever win? No. So what would be the point of entering politics? It would just be a distraction for me that would stop me from actually doing work that could actually help people. Yeah. I'm not like a politician. I don't just travel around for photo ops and say scripted words to try to gain popularity so I can gain people's money and support. I go to small towns. I go to places where I know I can have the most potential impact personally. And I go there and I try to make change within the community that's going to reverberate and expand when I leave.
Yeah.
That's the difference between me and them. We have totally different agendas. I'm there to help people. I'm there to help people learn how to look after themselves. They're there to tell people to give them their support so they can look after them. And I don't want to look after people. I don't want to lead people. I want people to learn how to be leaders themselves. That way we can never run into this mess again.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk now about, again, a topic that we've never really talked about. The world is full of sick child traffickers supplying the pedophiles with their prey. We see the likes of Ghislaine Maxwell going to jail as the supplier, and none of their billionaire politicians or elite royalty that should be in jail who were receiving the children that were being trafficked. Shouldn't this be a public outcry for true justice? And are people going to allow this to continue in the future?
It's absolutely disgusting. Forget all the rich, wealthy elites. There wasn't even one suspect that got charged. Not even some average Joe, like just normal guy. That's how well protected these pedophiles are. And the only let everybody think about that for a second. Let that sink in. This was the largest child sex trafficking ring in the history of mankind, and not one client is in jail.
Yeah.
That means that they are so well protected by the institutions that are supposed to be prosecuting them that they have a virtually 100% immunity buffer from prosecution. Now, the only way that is possible is if these entire institutions are full of and controlled by these pedophiles and sex traffickers. Yeah. This is a logical argument, and nobody can dispel this, because you're either controlled by these people or you're one of these people, because that is the only explanation where you can have the largest child sex trafficking ring and all they have is one fall person and not one other person goes to jail. There should literally be dozens and dozens of people, public officials, government officials, but that's why. These people have already created a two-caste system where they are elite, they are the ruling class, and we are the plebs. And now they're trying to codify that in law by removing our rights and freedoms. And they've done such a good job. There is no public outcry. Where's the public outcry? Where are the people screaming at the government and the judges to arrest these people that we have clear evidence were abusing and murdering and raping children? But not one of them is in jail. Not one of them is even made public. No. And we're not even talking about it. People are more worried about filling up their car with gas than they are what happened to the thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of friggin' children on a daily basis. That's where we are in this world. We're in a world where you'll get shamed if you don't take your 6-year-old to an all ages drag queen event.
Yeah. But the sad part is people are their own worst enemy by not highlighting this, by not discussing this, by not demanding that things are done. Because by allowing this to get to this stage, they are signaling this is the green light that they can just carry on doing what they want to do. And as you said about these, the things going on in schools now and stuff with all this crazy stuff, not only is it a divide and conquer technique, I do actually feel that once there's a public acceptance of such things that they're seeing in schools now with the transgender things, I think that the next stage is that they're going to want people to accept things like pedophilia.
That's 100% guaranteed, buddy. Way back in 2013, the DSM, the Data Statistic Manual, which holds every psychological illness and disease and disorder of mankind's history in there, it relisted pedophilia like homosexuality as a sexual orientation. That was 9 years ago. Yeah. And there was actually a big public outcry at the time, to the point where they had to say that the publication was an error. They backtracked it. They put it back to a mental illness, and they left it at that. Fast forward to 9 years later, you can type in pedophilia, sexual orientation in Google. They talked about it at the TED Talks. They said it was a sexual orientation. Now they try to distance themselves from it and say that people at the TED Talks are free to talk about whatever they want. Yeah, bullshit. Because you got invited to talk at the most prestigious place, the most expensive talk in the world, but they didn't know that you were going to say that pedophilia is a sexual orientation. No. And you can see rags like Salon writing articles like, I'm a pedophile, not a monster. And they're even including the LGBTQ plus. And then you have places like California that passed the law. Did you hear about the law in California?
No.
That allows you, if there's not a big age group, you can have sex with a minor. And
Right.
you won't have to be registered as a child sex offender.
And is this something that Newsom's let go through?
Yes, Newsom's the one that signed it into law. Based on what was the guy's name? Weiner, not Anthony Weiner, not to be confused with Anthony Weiner, another man named Weiner who's openly gay, and he says it stigmatizes gay men. So it allows a gay adult to have sex with a minor child if their age is not that far off. I can't remember what the age difference is, and if they can prove that the child consented. So imagine that. Your 13-year-old could get, I think it's a 10-year age gap. So I believe it's a 13-year-old could have sex with like a 20-something-year-old, and they'd still be considered a non-sexual offender under this law. So they're doing everything they can to normalize, legalize, and even try to attack people who speak out against it. And if you want to know how powerful the movement of pedophiles is, have you ever looked at the NAMBLA webpage?
No.
NAMBLA is the North American Man-Boy Love Association,
Oh, God.
the official pedophile rights association that's trying to fight for pedophile rights. And some of the founding members of this organization are people like Peter Thiel. People know him from little things like PayPal. So we're talking about some of the richest and most powerful men in the world that have a penchant for having sex with little boys and are so open about it that they've actually started entire organizations to spend millions and millions of dollars lobbying psychiatrists, schools, government, and public health officials to normalize, legalize pedophilia.
It is absolutely unbelievable. Let's get on to another subject. Let's talk about, you had a problem last year, I think it was, with Rebel News. And while you were on the interview, you terminated the interview halfway through. Have the bridges been completely burned with them now, or have you spoken to them since?
I did like a 3-minute talk with David when I ran into him in Ottawa during the trucker convoy, but I don't think they aired any of it. I had a few words with Drea, and they weren't positive words at the worldwide rally in Vancouver on the 19th, because she was on the side of the bad people, which were the worldwide rally people, the ones trying to exclude everybody from the world. How could you have a worldwide rally, but then over 21 groups that want to be part of your rally that they're not allowed to be part of the rally? It's a worldwide rally, but only for the people that we say are allowed to be there. Yeah, ridiculous.
So promoting
Rebel News, and I'm going to tell everybody exactly what happened with Rebel News. They used me for a long time to gain views during the startup of the pandemic. They used me greatly to their ability to get followers and to get YouTube likes and donations, and to get PayPal likes and donations. However, once it was too controversial and they started getting YouTube strikes, eventually they got kicked off of YouTube. Eventually PayPal locked them out. So now all of a sudden their two main sources of funding were gone. Then what happened? Someone stepped in. Ezra Levant actually made a tape about me where he called me the hero that Canada needed. And it was a puff piece where he talked about me for like 30 minutes, like I was literally Superman. And then within 2 weeks of that, they called me in for an interview. So what Ezra did is he did that crazy puff piece on me that got so many views to show all his potential investors who wanted to take over Rebel, how powerful he was and how he could promote Chris Sky and really screw with their agenda. Basically, he was using me to try to find the highest bidder of who was going to pay him the most money to try to take me down. So then they invited me over for their little interview. They brought up what is the number one thing that every establishment media tries to use to cancel and destroy someone? An anti-Semite claim, a Holocaust denial claim.
Yeah.
So that's what they did. They tried to call me a Holocaust denier because I questioned the estimate of 6 million dead Jewish people in the Holocaust. Why do I question it? I don't know, because I did a lot of studying in World War II, and I actually went to Germany, and I actually went to concentration camps, and I actually spent over a couple weeks talking to various Jewish scholars in Germany who did nothing but the Holocaust. And the one thing that they all had in common was they all had a different estimation for how many people died. And then I found out that the organization that came up with the 6 million number originally estimated 18 million, until somebody pointed out to them that there weren't even 18 million Jewish people on the planet. So it wasn't even possible to have killed that many. So then they just revised their estimate from 18 million to 6 million. And at that point, we're no longer allowed to question the estimate. And if you question the number of people that died, you're a Holocaust denier. Apparently.
But I do believe, I think it's at Auschwitz now, they've actually changed the plaque outside and downgraded the amount of deaths to something like 1.5 million within that area. I've seen,
and that's what I was getting at. That's exactly what I was getting at, because I was like, I had a Jewish scholar tell me 1 million. I had another guy tell me 3 million, and now they're saying 6 million, but they said 18 million. So just from 4 separate sources, we have a range of 1 million to 18 million. Who's right? Answer: how the hell do we know? You don't.
But the thing is, those that win the war always get to write history in the way that they want it to be seen. And we know who controls the war. It's the same people that control the central banks and the system around us right now. So nothing has changed. We know that Germany was funded by prominent people around the world, prominent people within the US. The war could have been stopped immediately just by drying up the supply chain to a lot of these places. And I know,
why would they do that? Well, they could fund both sides of the war and then get the spoils and the money and the interest.
That's right. And I believe, I mean, you might be able to correct me on this if I'm wrong, but isn't the term Nazi actually NA being National Socialist and the ZI part of it being Zionism, which was a collaboration to actually move a huge amount of Jewish people down to what they consider to be the promised land to bring about what they thought was the supposed lands that they were supposed to have and bring about this prophecy within the Bible.
Well, people can call that speculation or whatever they want, but the reality is, I can't remember the exact year, but there was a year where they minted a coin, a commemorative medal or coin that explained exactly what you said. And it showed that it had the Nazi symbol on it, and it said NAZI, and it explained exactly what you said, that it was about a migration of the Jewish people to a new homeland. And millions of them, 6 million of them, in fact.
And it's to bring about that prophecy. But not only that, what allowed them to do this movement and give them the lands was the Balfour Declaration. Now, the Balfour Declaration was signed in the UK. The royal family were involved with it, but the people that actually put it together, and lo and behold, we come back to the same people again, was the Rothschild family that allowed this Balfour Declaration to happen.
And who's their heir right now? Mr. Klaus Schwab.
Yes. All blood related when you start to follow the family bloodlines. It's
the money.
Yeah, it's the same people. It's the same pyramid structure. Nothing has changed. The baton has just been handed on to the next generations of those families to continue the work and to keep moving forward with an agenda that has been around for so long now that people would probably find it impossible that they could have planned that far back.
Well, look how good they've got. Look how far they come. They don't even need war anymore. They literally have people lining up and killing themselves. So now they don't even have to destroy the infrastructure in the cities. They don't have to bomb buildings. They don't have to do that. They literally have the people so brainwashed by propaganda and technology that they will line up, inject themselves with poison, and take themselves out of commission for them.
That's it. You know, and
genius.
Unfortunately, history, when people look back at this period in time in history, you know, the numbers that you were talking about the Holocaust, the numbers of murders that the same people, the same bloodlines are committing now are going to eclipse that by millions, absolutely millions. And they seem so far to be quite happy to continue that. I mean, I don't know whether you saw something in the news this week, and it may be completely unrelated. I always have a little bit of a concern every time they say that they're going to fire this Hadron Collider up at CERN and run the thing at full volume. What are you hearing on that? You hearing anything that's a little bit?
I have literal inside information because one of my high school friends, who happens to be a genius, scored perfect on his SATs. He got picked up by MIT, and then he got sent to Geneva, Switzerland to work at CERN on the collider. So he's there. And I asked him what he thinks, because he knows a hell of a lot more than me or anybody else I know. And he was a little bit scared of them firing it up at full power, because virtually every time they've tested it at lesser powers, they test it until something breaks. And something has broken every single time. So what's going to happen when you test it at full power? Obviously, something's going to break. But what's going to break and how is it going to affect us? He couldn't tell me. And that's what scared him. He's like, normally I would just say, oh, this is going to break and it'll probably cause this kind of power outage or this kind of damage to this part of it. He goes, if it's running at full power, like literally all bets are off. There's just so many different theories of what could possibly happen, from friggin' explosions to black holes to portals I've heard every single thing from reputable and intelligent people. So the answer is nobody has any fucking clue. And whenever you're in a situation like that, it's probably best not to be messing with something like that.
No, whatever it is.
It could literally cause an extinction level event of some type. And we have no way of knowing or no way of predicting.
No, that's it. And whatever it is, it's not good. I know they say, again, it's in for the progress of science, but I don't think
they won't even say specifically what they're trying to achieve with it, though.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? Like, why can't they say we're running it at full power because we're trying to see the effects of this on this, to see this on... No, they're just telling you, oh, we're running it at full power to see what it can do. Well, what's it supposed to do? Oh, we can't tell you that.
Supposedly, and I went to a very good museum linked to the universities in Roswell, and they actually gave us a big talk on the Hadron Collider, and supposedly it's the progress towards finding black matter itself. You know, something that nobody has ever been able to prove exists, but they think they're going to do it by firing these particles into each other
at the speed of light.
Yes. So it's, you know, they're almost trying to find something that they're not even sure exists. It's just something that was used in some of Einstein's calculations to prove theories of relativity. And, you know, what are they trying to do? Prove his theory right or wrong? But it's, you know, it's like me just making something up and saying, well, Chris, I think this exists, but we're going to pour billions and billions of dollars into this machine. We're going to smash things together. And I think we can find what we're looking for. It makes absolutely no sense.
That's why I don't believe that at all. I believe there's an ulterior motive to it.
Yeah.
For that, it's too big of a project. It's a conglomerate from multiple countries. It's an underground facility. Like, everything about it screams high-level military operation, not something that they're just trying to do to fucking prove a theory of any scientist.
That's it. Now, we'll start to wrap it up. I think what we've covered today is going to have the outcries of lots of people again, which is fantastic. We probably achieve our goal by doing that. Now, let everyone know where they can find you online or future events. And please give the people out there what you think is the most important message right now.
No problem. So most of my social medias are banned. I was banned off Twitter, banned off TikTok, banned off Facebook, banned off Instagram so many times. I have an Instagram right now, but it can't be mentioned, but you can still check out. It's at the only Chris Sky. My Telegram is highly censored, but you can still get on it if you download it from telegram.org, not from the Apple or Google Play stores. And it's real Chris Sky, all capitals, the one with like 68,000 followers, because there's a million fake accounts. They try to make it next to impossible to find me. The next place I'm going to be is Red Deer on July 10th. We're doing an event for Pat King. Pat King is still locked up without bail since February. His bank accounts are still frozen, and his ridiculous charges are like mischief or obstructing an officer by having people honk horns, like the stupidest charges you've ever heard of. And they've had him in jail for months. They even took his leg, so he's on one leg in jail, barely getting exercise, barely getting phone calls. Has no access to a proper lawyer because his bank accounts have been frozen. We have to do fundraising and stuff for him. So that's ridiculous. And as always, the most important message is this summer, do everything you can to enjoy as much of it as you can. See everyone you want to see, go everywhere you want to go. Remember what it's like to be free. Because not only is that going to recharge your mental health and reinvigorate your spirit, it's going to put you in a position where you're a lot more likely to say no when they tell you to put the mask back on and give up your rest of your freedoms this fall. And that's going to happen 100%. So you need to prepare for it mentally, physically, spiritually. And the best way to do that is enjoy this time you have while still remembering your responsibility. And your responsibility is to just say no to every aspect of this tyranny, the mask, the closures, the vaccine, etc. And if we do our part, and that's really doing our part, then this stops in its tracks, this all goes away, and it becomes a nightmare that we could all wake up from. And the only thing we're going to have to deal with at that point is all the adverse reactions that are going to manifest over the next few years. Make no mistake, we're already at the point where there's going to be mass death and suffering in a vast majority. I can't say a vast majority, but in a vast majority of people, and I'm meaning millions and millions of people, not a vast majority of the percentage of the population. I don't think we're at an extinction level event yet, but you are going to see tens of millions, if not hundreds of million people suffering debilitating and lifelong adverse reactions from these jabs. And if you go with number 4, 5, and 6, that number is just going to keep going up. No doctor can dispute that. No public health official can dispute that. And nobody can dispute the fact that the more you comply, the more restrictions you're going to get and the longer this goes. So everybody, just say no isn't just a slogan. It's literally a lifestyle. Absolutely. It's literally you telling the rest of the world that you're ready to make your own decisions. You're ready to live your life on your terms. And there's nothing more important than that.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great message to end it. And as we always say here on the Atlantic Underground podcast, believe nothing and question everything. And thanks once more to today's guest, the one and only Chris Sky. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, brother. God bless everybody. Have a great night.
Take care, and I'll catch up with you soon. Thanks, mate.
Always, man, you know.
Cheers.